The cold metal walls of the cryopod pressed against Captain Work's body as he regained consciousness. His breath came out in ragged gasps, his heart pounding like a war drum. A mechanical voice echoed inside the confined space. "Welcome, competitors. The Galactic Battle Royale begins now." Rourke's eyes shot open. The pod shook violently. Red warning lights flashed in his peripheral vision. He could hear muffled screams from the others. But he couldn't move. His body was still stiff from cryo-sleep. Then, impact. The pod slammed into solid ground with bone-crushing force. The harness disengaged, and Work was flung forward, rolling onto his knees. His vision blurred. His ears rang. But he didn't have time to recover. The hatch blew open, exposing him to the battlefield. The sky above was a swirling storm of fire and metal. An enormous dying red sun loomed over them, casting long shadows across the war-torn ground. The battlefield was a fractured alien megastructure, ancient and crumbling. Metal debris floated in low gravity, sparks flickering in the air like fireflies. The entire arena groaned as it shifted, massive gears grinding beneath the surface, rearranging terrain in real time. Explosions erupted in the distance. The scent of burning flesh and ozone filled the air. A screeching sound made Work turn. A reptilian warrior with 4 serrated arms was already charging toward him, its twin blades glinting under the blood-red light. Work dived aside, just as the sword sliced through the air where his head had been. The creature was fast, too fast. Rourke had no weapons, no armor, just his bare fists and human instinct. The alien lunged again. Work ducked, grabbing a loose shard of metal from the wreckage. As the alien swung, he twisted and slammed the shard into its exposed throat. A wet gurgle. Black blood sprayed. The creature collapsed, twitching. "Rourke, move." Sergeant Vega yanked him back, just as a plasma round tore through the space where he had been standing. A sniper, perched on a collapsed pillar, was picking off competitors with ruthless precision. "Cover!" Rourke shouted, sprinting with Vega toward a cluster of jagged debris. The rest of Earth's 10 warriors were scattered, emerging from their own pods across the battlefield. Some had already engaged in combat. Others were running for their lives. A massive 6-legged war beast barreled through the carnage, its mechanical limbs crushing anything in its path. A human soldier, Martinez, tried to jump aside, but the beast's razor-sharp appendage impaled him mid-air. Blood splattered. His scream was cut short. "Martinez is down," Vega yelled. Rourke's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned. The aliens had energy shields, advanced weaponry. All humanity had was training and strategy. A deep, guttural roar made him spin. From the far end of the battlefield, a towering cybernetic warlord stepped forward. 10 feet tall, plated in armor, his face hidden behind a skull-like metal mask. In each hand, he wielded a plasma blade, crackling with energy. "The reigning champion," Vega muttered. The warlord raised a massive gauntlet and fired a pulse cannon. Rourke barely had time to react. The shot detonated against the ground, sending a shockwave through the battlefield. The air pressure alone launched him backward. He crashed into a rusted pillar, pain exploding across his ribs. His vision blurred. Through the haze, he saw the warlord charging straight toward them. Rourke's instincts kicked in. Run. Survive. Adapt. Scatter, he ordered. The remaining humans split into different directions. The warlord slashed through a competitor from another species, slicing him clean in half. His movements were impossibly fast for something so large. Vega fired a shot, a direct hit to the warlord's chest. The plasma round barely left a scorch mark. The warlord turned to Vega. "No." Before Vega could move, the warlord grabbed him by the throat and lifted him into the air. Vega struggled, kicking wildly. The warlord's grip tightened. Rourke scrambled for a weapon. Anything. His hands closed around a broken alien rifle. Too late. With a sickening crack, the warlord crushed Vega's throat and tossed his limp body aside like garbage. Rourke's blood went cold. Vega was one of their best. If he went down that easily, what chance did the rest of them have? A warning alarm blared. A new hazard was activating. The battlefield shuddered. Gravity fluctuated wildly, sending debris, bodies, and competitors tumbling into the air. A massive rift in the ground opened up, revealing a swirling vortex of fire and energy. An alien warrior in mid-combat lost his footing and tumbled into the void, his screams fading as he was consumed. Rourke didn't have time to think. He grabbed onto a metal beam as his body lifted off the ground. His fingers barely held on as gravity continued shifting. Nearby, another human soldier wasn't as lucky. She flailed, trying to grab onto something, anything, but was yanked into the vortex, her body disintegrating instantly. Another teammate gone. Rourke's grip slipped. He was seconds from being sucked in when a hand grabbed his wrist. Private Hayes, face twisted in determination, pulled him back onto solid ground. "Don't you dare die on me, Captain," Hayes growled. Rourke clapped him on the shoulder. "Not today." The gravity stabilized. The vortex sealed itself, leaving behind only charred remnants of those who had fallen. Rourke surveyed the battlefield. Out of the original 10 humans, only 6 remained, and they were still being hunted. The warlord locked eyes with him from across the battlefield. "This is only the beginning," he growled in perfect English. Rourke clenched his jaw. His fists tightened around the stolen weapon. "Then let's give them a fight they won't forget." Rourke's breathing was heavy as he crouched behind a rusted metal barricade, his stolen alien rifle gripped tightly in his hands. His mind was racing. 6 humans left. They had only been on the battlefield for minutes, and already 4 of their own were dead. The warlord was still out there, hunting them like prey. The arena was shifting, evolving, throwing new dangers at them with every passing second. They needed to regroup to find a way to survive. But survival in this hellish place was not guaranteed. A distant explosion sent a shockwave through the battlefield, rattling the metal beneath him. He peered over his cover. In the distance, an alien competitor, a massive insectoid creature with razor-sharp limbs, was locked in a brutal fight with a reptilian warrior. The insectoid struck first, impaling the reptilian through the chest with a sickening crunch. But before it could celebrate, a sniper's plasma shot from somewhere above vaporized its head in an instant. Rourke cursed under his breath. They weren't just fighting the warlord or the arena itself. There were still dozens of other competitors out there, each one just as desperate to win. If the humans stayed scattered, they were doomed. He tapped his comm. "Anyone alive?" Static. Then a voice. "Hayes." "Yeah, me and Carter are pinned down near the wreckage of some kind of drone. Taking fire from 3 hostiles. We won't last long." Rourke's gut clenched. He scanned the battlefield, spotting a collapsed structure that looked like it once belonged to an alien war machine. If Hayes and Carter were there, they were sitting ducks. He had to move fast. "Hang on. I'm coming to you," Rourke said. He tapped his comm again. "Taylor. Jonas." Silence. Then, Jonas' voice, ragged and filled with pain. "Jonas is down," Taylor said, her voice eerily calm. "He didn't make it." Rourke closed his eyes for half a second. Another one gone. He wanted to mourn, to process, but there was no time. "Taylor, what's your position?" "South sector. 2 clicks from your location. Hostiles everywhere. I won't be able to reach you." Rourke exhaled sharply. "Survive. We'll regroup when we can." He didn't wait for a response. He had to get to Hayes and Carter before they were wiped out. Keeping low, he sprinted through the wreckage, using the shifting terrain as cover. Every few seconds, he heard gunfire, explosions, and screams as more competitors fell. The battlefield was alive with chaos. Flashes of plasma, the sound of metal against metal, the roars of creatures that didn't belong in any sane universe. Then, up ahead, movement. 3 alien warriors were closing in on a makeshift barricade. Hayes and Carter were behind it, desperately returning fire, but they were outnumbered. The aliens were bigger, stronger, and their armor absorbed most of the plasma rounds. Rourke didn't hesitate. He shouldered his stolen rifle, took aim at the closest alien, a towering brute with a glowing energy axe, and fired. The shot hit its target. The alien stumbled, roaring in pain, but didn't go down. Instead, it turned, locking its glowing yellow eyes on Rourke. "Shit," he muttered. The brute charged. Rourke barely had time to react before the alien swung its axe, missing his head by inches. He rolled to the side, bringing his rifle up for another shot. But the brute was too fast. It grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Rourke gasped, struggling against the alien's iron grip. He felt his vision darkening, the air being crushed from his lungs. His fingers fumbled for his sidearm. He barely managed to pull it free before he jammed it under the brute's chin and pulled the trigger. A plasma burst tore through the alien's skull. The grip loosened. Rourke dropped to the ground, coughing. No time to recover. The other 2 aliens were still engaging Hayes and Carter. Rourke grabbed the brute's fallen axe and hurled it at the closest enemy. The weapon spun through the air and embedded itself into the alien's chest. One left. Hayes took the shot, a clean hit to the last alien's head. The body slumped forward. Silence. For a moment, there was only the sound of their heavy breathing. "Hell of an entrance, Captain," Hayes said, reloading his rifle. "No time for jokes," Rourke replied. "We need to move. Now." The battlefield shifted again. A loud mechanical groan echoed through the air as the arena transformed. Massive spiked pillars erupted from the ground, forming new barriers and killing anything unlucky enough to be in their path. "Where's Carter?" Rourke asked. Hayes' expression darkened. He didn't make it. Another one gone. Rourke clenched his fists. They had started with 10. Now they were down to 4. A low hum filled the air. Rourke's stomach twisted. He turned toward the source of the sound and froze. A swarm of AI-controlled kill drones was descending from the sky. Each one was a floating metal sphere with glowing red optics and razor-sharp energy blades. They weren't targeting anyone specific. They were programmed to kill everything. "Run," Rourke said. They sprinted. Behind them, the drones swept across the battlefield, cutting down anything in their path. Rourke saw an alien competitor try to fight back, but the moment he raised his weapon, a dozen drones descended on him, slicing him apart in seconds. They reached an abandoned bunker, slamming the door shut behind them just as the drones passed overhead. The walls trembled from the vibrations of battle. Rourke leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "We can't keep running," he said. "We need a plan." Hayes frowned. "Like what?" "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and every few minutes, this place throws another death trap at us." Rourke looked down at the stolen alien rifle in his hands, then at the glowing power core of a disabled drone lying in the corner of the bunker. He exhaled. "We're gonna stop playing by their rules," he said. "We're gonna fight smart." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "You got a plan?" Rourke nodded. "We're taking control of this battlefield." They didn't have the numbers. They didn't have the firepower. But humans didn't need brute force to win. They had something better. Tactics. Rourke knelt beside the glowing power core of the disabled drone, his fingers running over its smooth metallic surface. The faint hum of stored energy pulsed beneath his touch. It was a weapon. No, it was more than that. It was an opportunity. The battlefield was designed to be a death trap, but every trap had a weakness. Every system could be turned against its creator. "We can't win a fair fight," Rourke muttered. "So we won't fight fair." Hayes and Taylor exchanged glances. They were bruised, exhausted, outnumbered. But something in Rourke's voice made them straighten their backs. "What are you thinking, Captain?" Taylor asked. Rourke lifted the drone's core. If we can hijack the drones, we can use them to clear the battlefield. Hayes scoffed. You want to reprogram alien tech in the middle of a war zone? That's insane. Maybe, Rourke admitted, but it's our best shot. Taylor crouched beside him, examining the drone's circuitry. She had some engineering background. Not enough to be a hacker, but enough to understand the basics. I might be able to reroute the targeting system, she said, but it's risky. If I mess up, the whole thing could explode. Then don't mess up, Rourke said, offering a half-smile. Taylor exhaled and got to work. Sparks flickered as she pulled apart the drone's outer casing, exposing its inner mechanics. Wires twisted like veins, pulsing with alien energy. Every second counted. Outside, the battlefield roared with explosions, screams, and the mechanical hum of more approaching drones. Rourke stayed on watch, his rifle ready. Hayes paced impatiently, gripping his sidearm. If this doesn't work, we need a backup plan. This is the backup plan, Rourke muttered. A distant roar made them freeze. The warlord. He was close. Taylor's hands trembled as she worked faster. Almost there. Just need toe. A sharp beep cut through the air. The drone's optic light shifted from red to blue. I did it, Taylor whispered. Rourke didn't hesitate. He activated the drone's command function, rerouting its targeting. A second later, the hovering sphere shot forward, straight toward a cluster of enemy combatants. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, chaos. The drone turned on its former allies, firing a rapid burst of plasma rounds that tore through 3 alien warriors in seconds. Another drone, detecting the anomaly, turned and opened fire on its own kind. It worked. Hayes let out a breathless chuckle. Holy shit, we just hacked the game. More drones entered the fray, attacking indiscriminately as their corrupted code spread like a virus. The battlefield descended into confusion as warriors who had been locked in combat now found themselves being slaughtered by the very machines meant to enforce order. Rourke didn't waste the opportunity. We move now. They slipped out of the bunker, sticking to the shadows as their stolen drones cleared a path. The sounds of battle masked their movements. Every second that passed, more alien competitors fell, cut down by the relentless machines. The warlord, however, was unaffected. Rourke spotted him in the distance, carving through the chaos with ease. The massive cybernetic warrior moved like a force of nature, his twin plasma blades tearing through both drones and enemies alike. The drones registered him as a threat, but they weren't fast enough to stop him. Rourke's stomach twisted. The warlord was still the biggest threat in the arena. No amount of hacking would change that. We need a real plan, Taylor said. Rourke's eyes locked onto something in the distance, a control tower, half buried in the ruins. Its structure was cracked, ancient, but its design was unmistakable. That was the heart of the battlefield. If we get inside that tower, we can take full control, Rourke said. Hayes raised an eyebrow. And then what? Then we end this fight on our terms. No one argued. They were running out of time. Moving carefully, they weaved through the battlefield, staying out of sight as the drones continued their massacre. They'd reached the base of the tower, where a large reinforced door stood in their way. Taylor examined the panel. Looks like we need a code. Rourke didn't hesitate. He pulled out his stolen alien rifle and blasted the panel apart. Sparks flew, and the door hissed open. Works every time, he muttered. Inside, the tower was a maze of ancient technology. Glowing screens displayed real-time data from the battlefield, shifting terrain algorithms, and a kill count that was rapidly dropping. At the center of the room, a massive command console pulsed with alien energy. This is it, Taylor breathed. If I can override the main system, we'll have control over the arena's defenses. Rourke nodded. Do it. Taylor worked fast, fingers flying over the console. The screen flickered, lines of alien code shifting as she fought to break into the system. Sweat dripped down her forehead. A distant boom shook the tower. The warlord was coming. Rourke and Hayes took defensive positions near the entrance, weapons ready. The metallic thud of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. "He's here," Hayes whispered. The warlord stepped into view, his skull-like mask reflecting the dim light. He moved slowly, deliberately, a predator that knew its prey had nowhere left to run. "You have fought well," the warlord rumbled. "But this is where it ends." Rourke didn't respond. He opened fire. The warlord moved with inhuman speed, dodging the shots effortlessly. He closed the distance in seconds, swinging one of his plasma blades in a lethal arc. Hayes barely dodged in time, the blade slicing through the wall behind him like butter. He fired back, but the shots barely left a mark on the warlord's armor. Taylor was still working. Almost there. Just need. The warlord lunged at Rourke. Rourke rolled under the attack, grabbing a fallen drone's energy core and hurling it like a grenade. The explosion forced the warlord back, but not for long. "You cannot win," the warlord growled. Taylor let out a sharp breath. Done. The entire arena trembled. From above, massive energy cannons emerged from hidden compartments. The warlord barely had time to react before the first blast struck him head-on. A second blast followed, then a third. The warlord roared in pain as his armor cracked and burned. His body staggered, limbs failing. Rourke watched, breathless, as the warlord fell to his knees. For the first time, he saw something in the warrior's glowing red eyes. Shock. Rourke stepped forward, lifting his rifle. One final shot. He pulled the trigger. The warlord collapsed. The battlefield fell silent. A mechanical voice echoed through the tower. "Winner detected. Humans. Victorious." Rourke exhaled, lowering his weapon. He turned to his team. What was left of them? They had won, but at what cost? Outside, the battlefield still smoldered with the remnants of the fight. Bodies lay scattered. The drones powered down. The sky, once filled with fire, seemed eerily quiet. Hayes let out a weak chuckle. "Guess we broke the game." Taylor smiled tiredly. "Yeah, we did." Rourke looked at the control panel one last time. This wasn't just survival. This was proof. Humanity wasn't just a contestant in the galaxy's game. They were here to win. The battlefield was silent. Smoke rose from the ruins, and the metallic scent of burnt circuitry mixed with the stench of blood. The warlord was dead. The automated announcement had declared them victorious. They had done the impossible. Humanity had won. Rourke took a slow breath, his muscles aching, his hand still gripping his rifle, even though there was no immediate threat. Hayes was slumped against a nearby console, exhaustion evident in his face. Taylor stood near the command panel, staring at the screen, but her expression wasn't one of relief. Something was wrong. "This doesn't make sense," Taylor muttered. Her fingers moved over the alien controls, scanning the data still running through the system. The game should be over. The arena should shut down. Rourke frowned. "Maybe there's a delay." Taylor shook her head. "No, this whole thing is automated. If we were really the winners, we should be getting extracted." Hayes pushed himself up with a grunt. "So what? Some alien bureaucrat forgot to flip a switch." Taylor didn't answer. She looked up at them, eyes dark with realization. "The system is still running." Rourke's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" "The game isn't over." A sharp click echoed through the room. Rourke turned just in time to see Hayes raising his sidearm, pointed directly at him. For a moment, no one spoke. The battlefield outside, the drones, the ruins, all of it faded into the background. Only the three of them remained. Taylor's breath hitched. "What the hell are you doing, Hayes?" Hayes' expression was unreadable. His hand was steady. "Making sure humanity survives," he said. Rourke narrowed his eyes. "You want to explain that?" Hayes exhaled, his finger hovering over the trigger. "You don't get it, do you? This was never about winning." "Enlighten me," Rourke said, his own grip tightening on his rifle. Hayes didn't lower his gun. You really think the aliens were gonna let us walk away? That they'd just let humanity win and be done with it? No, we were never meant to make it this far. The moment we hacked the system, the moment we broke their rules, we became a problem. Taylor's eyes darted between them. So what? We fight our way out. Together. Hayes let out a humorless chuckle. You still don't get it. The game isn't over because it's not just about the battlefield. It's about eliminating threats. They don't want warriors. They want control. Rourke's blood ran cold. You made a deal. Hayes' silence was all the confirmation he needed. Before we entered the game, an offer was made. Hayes admitted. One survivor. One winner. That's the only way they let humanity into their precious galactic empire. I thought we'd lose like everyone else. But then we started winning. And when I realized we could actually take this thing, I knew I had to make a choice. Rourke's heart pounded. You're saying? Hayes took a slow breath. Only one of us gets out of here alive. For a moment, none of them moved. Then, gunfire. Rourke dove sideways as Hayes opened fire, plasma rounds scorching the air where he had stood. Taylor yelped, scrambling behind a console. Rourke rolled into position, his own rifle snapping up. He fired, but Hayes was already moving, using the debris for cover. The sound of their weapons echoed in the control room. Taylor yelled, "Stop this, both of you." Hayes ignored her, reloading fast. "I'm sorry, Captain, but you know I'm right." Rourke clenched his jaw. "No, Hayes. You're just scared." Hayes stepped out, aiming for a kill shot. But Rourke was faster. One clean shot. The plasma round hit Hayes square in the chest. He staggered, his gun slipping from his hands. His mouth opened, as if he wanted to say something, but no words came. He collapsed. Rourke exhaled, chest rising and falling with adrenaline. He took a slow step forward, kneeling beside Hayes. The man's breathing was shallow, his eyes flickering with something between anger and regret. "I had to try," Hayes whispered. Rourke shook his head. "Yeah, you did." Hayes let out a weak chuckle. "Guess that's my cost of victory, huh?" His hand twitched, then went still. Taylor pressed a hand to her mouth. Rourke closed his eyes for a second. Then he stood. "We need to get out of here." Taylor wiped at her face and nodded. "But how?" Rourke turned back to the command panel. He studied the screens, the controls, the data still pouring through the system. They had taken control of the battlefield. But that wasn't enough. If they wanted to survive, they had to take control of everything. Rourke's hands moved over the console, searching. The system still had power. The security defenses were active. There had to be a way to override the entire operation. Then he saw it. A shutdown sequence. It wasn't meant for players to access. It was a kill switch for emergencies. Rourke exhaled. "This is it." Taylor leaned in. "Will it get us out?" Rourke hesitated. "I don't know, but it'll end the game." Taylor bit her lip. Then, without another word, she pressed the command. The battlefield lurched. Alarms blared. The ground shook violently, and the sky cracked open. The energy barriers around the arena flickered and died. And then, a voice. "System override detected. Galactic Battle Royale. Terminated." The drones dropped lifelessly from the sky. The shifting landscape froze in place. The remaining alien combatants, confused and bloodied, looked around in horror as the game they had been forced into was suddenly collapsing. Rourke grabbed Taylor's arm. "Move." They ran. The control tower began to collapse behind them, metal and fire raining down as the entire arena shut down for good. For a moment, Rourke thought they wouldn't make it, that the whole place would cave in before they got out. Then, light. Not fire, not explosions. A beam of golden energy. And then, silence. When Rourke opened his eyes, he wasn't on the battlefield anymore. He was standing on a metallic platform, surrounded by towering alien figures. Their eyes glowed, their robes flowing like liquid metal. Taylor gasped beside him. They had been transported. A voice, deep and emotionless, echoed through the chamber. You have done what no species has done before. Rourke squared his shoulders. We won. The alien figure studied him. Yes, but at what cost? Rourke didn't answer. He just looked at Taylor. They were the only two left. The alien continued. Your kind is proven. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Perhaps too dangerous. Taylor whispered, What happens now? The alien tilted its head. That remains to be seen. Rourke's boots felt weightless against the smooth metallic floor. The chamber stretched endlessly, walls shimmering like liquid metal, yet solid beneath his touch. Towering alien figures loomed before him, their eyes glowing with unreadable expressions. These were the architects of the Galactic Battle Royal, the ones who had created the blood-soaked game that had stolen countless lives. Taylor stood beside him, shoulders squared, though her hands trembled slightly. They had made it this far. They had survived. But the battle wasn't over. One of the alien figures stepped forward. Its voice echoed through the chamber, deep and mechanical. You have disrupted the game. Rourke's jaw clenched. We won. The alien's glowing eyes flickered. Winning is not the same as surviving. Your kind was never meant to succeed. A low hum filled the air. The chamber began to shift. The walls shimmered, then peeled away, revealing a vast arena stretching into the horizon. The sky above twisted with unnatural colors, swirling in patterns that defied reality. Rourke's stomach turned. They weren't done yet. The alien spoke again, its voice filled with cold amusement. One last test. A blast of energy erupted from the ground. Shapes began to form, towering, mechanical monstrosities, warriors crafted from metal and flesh, armed with weapons far beyond human understanding. Their glowing red eyes locked onto Rourke and Taylor, and without hesitation, they charged. Rourke reacted on instinct, shoving Taylor aside as a plasma spear nearly impaled them both. The heat seared his skin, but he gritted his teeth and rolled to the side, grabbing the first weapon he could find. A discarded alien rifle still humming with energy. Taylor scrambled behind a fallen pillar, breathing heavily. They want to finish us off. No, Rourke muttered, narrowing his eyes at the massive figures closing in. They want to prove that humans don't deserve to exist. A mechanical giant swung its arm, a blade extending from its wrist. Rourke barely dodged, the weapon slicing through the stone beside him like paper. He fired his rifle, the energy blast hitting the creature's chest, but it barely staggered. We can't win in a straight fight, Taylor shouted. Rourke's mind raced. The game had rules. Even when they broke them, the system had structure. These creatures, they weren't mindless. They were designed to kill. But everything that was built could be broken. His eyes darted to the glowing symbols along their armored bodies, pulsing with strange energy. Weak points. Taylor, he called. Aim for the cores. She nodded, ducking under another attack. She grabbed a fallen energy pistol, lined up a shot, and fired. The blast struck one of the creatures in the chest. For a second, nothing happened. Then its body convulsed violently, sparks bursting from its core. It collapsed, its massive frame crashing into the ground. It worked. But there were still 3 more. The ground rumbled beneath them. One of the creatures lifted its hand, and suddenly the air crackled with energy. A wave of force slammed into Rourke, sending him skidding across the ground. His vision blurred, his ribs screaming in pain. Taylor screamed his name, but he couldn't respond. His fingers dug into the ground as he forced himself up. He couldn't stop. Not now. One of the giants loomed over him, raising its blade for the killing blow. Rourke reached for his belt and yanked off the last explosive charge he had stolen from the battlefield. He activated it. The creature brought its blade down, and Rourke hurled the explosive into its chest. The blast tore through the giant's core, sending shrapnel and fire cascading outward. The force threw Rourke back, but he didn't care. The creature staggered, its red eyes flickering. Then it collapsed. 2 down. Taylor fired at the third, hitting its weak point. The creature convulsed, its circuitry failing as it crashed to its knees. But the last one, the largest of them all, was still standing. It was different. It had been watching, learning. And now, it attacked. It moved faster than the others, closing the distance in a blink. Rourke barely had time to raise his weapon before a massive fist slammed into him, sending him flying. He hit the ground hard, pain exploding in his chest. He could barely breathe. Taylor cried out, firing wildly, but the creature deflected her shots with its armored forearm. It was adapting. Rourke's mind raced. There had to be a way. Something they weren't seeing. His eyes darted to the environment. The arena was alive, shifting, pulsing with energy. And at the center, just above them, was a massive power node, glowing brighter than anything else. The battlefield had rules. And if you knew the rules, you could break them. Taylor, he gasped. The node. Shoot it. She followed his gaze. Realization hit. Without hesitation, she turned her weapon upward and fired. The energy blast struck the node. The arena screamed. A shockwave erupted, blinding white light cascading through the battlefield. The giant warrior froze mid-step, its body convulsing as the very energy that powered it turned against itself. It let out a final, distorted roar. Then it shattered. Silence. Rourke lay on his back, breathing heavily. The swirling sky began to fade, the impossible colors dissolving into something clearer. The arena stopped shifting. And then, they weren't in the battlefield anymore. They stood once again in the alien chamber. The towering figures regarded them in silence. Rourke forced himself to stand. He faced them, chest heaving, bloodied, but unbroken. "We won," he said. The lead alien tilted its head. "You broke our rules. You defied the system." Rourke took a slow step forward. "Yeah," he exhaled. "That's what humans do." The silence stretched. Then, the alien inclined its head. A fitting answer. The chamber shifted again, and suddenly, they weren't standing in an alien structure. They were on Earth, or something that looked like Earth. Taylor gasped. "Are we home?" Rourke wasn't sure. He turned back, but the aliens were gone. No final words, no explanations, just them. Taylor looked at him. "Did we really win?" Rourke exhaled. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we're still here. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough." Rourke felt the warmth of the sun on his skin. The air smelled of salt, earth, and something achingly familiar. He took a slow breath, his fingers brushing against the solid ground beneath him. It wasn't cold metal or shifting alien terrain. It was real. Taylor stood beside him, her expression unreadable as she scanned their surroundings. Birds chirped in the distance. Waves crashed against a shore. A breeze rolled through the tall grass. It looked like Earth. But was it? Taylor spoke first. "Are we really home?" Rourke didn't answer immediately. His instincts screamed at him. This was too easy. The aliens wouldn't just let them walk away. Not after everything. He turned, his eyes scanning the horizon. There were no ruins, no signs of battle, no cities, no people, just untouched land, stretching as far as he could see. "Something's wrong," he muttered. Taylor bit her lip. "I feel it too." The last thing they remembered was standing in that chamber. The towering alien figures had spoken their final words. Then, nothing. Just this. Taylor kneeled, running her hands through the dirt. "It feels real," she admitted. "But why would they just send us back?" Rourke exhaled. Maybe they didn't." Taylor's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, the sky shifted. It wasn't immediate. It was subtle, like a crack forming in the fabric of reality itself. The clouds seemed to ripple, and the sun flickered for just a second. A small tear, barely noticeable to an untrained eye. Rourke saw it, and so did they. A deep, thrumming sound echoed through the air. Not natural. Mechanical. Then, movement. From beyond the horizon, figures emerge. Not human. They moved with eerie precision, their forms shifting between solid and shadow. Their eyes, those same glowing eyes from the chamber. Taylor inhaled sharply. They're watching us. Rourke's grip tightened. No, they're testing us. The realization hit like a bullet. This wasn't home. This was another arena. And they were still playing the game. Rourke's mind raced. Why? They had already won. They had proven themselves. So why were the aliens still watching? Then he understood. It was never about the game. It was never about survival. It was about fear. The Galactic Council had never intended for humanity to rise. They had engineered the tournament as a way to keep lesser species in check, to weed out threats before they could become a problem. And now, humanity had proven to be the biggest threat of all. Taylor's voice was tight. What do we do? Rourke exhaled. His muscles tensed, every instinct screaming at him to fight. But this wasn't just about them anymore. It wasn't just about escaping. It was about sending a message. He turned to Taylor. We give them exactly what they're afraid of. Her brow furrowed. What? He clenched his fists. We don't run. We don't hide. His gaze locked onto the shadowy figures approaching them. We make them regret ever challenging us. Taylor blinked, then let out a breath. A slow, determined smile formed on her lips. I like that plan. The figures were closer now. The air hummed with tension. Rourke cracked his knuckles. His voice was steady. Let's show them what humans can really do. And then, they charge. The battle didn't end in that arena. It didn't end with Rourke and Taylor. It was only the beginning. Word spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans had won. Not just survived. Won. And that changed everything. Across alien worlds, empires that had once dismissed Earth as insignificant grew silent. Discussions behind closed doors turned to hushed whispers of fear. If humans could do this, if they could defy the rules of the universe itself, what else were they capable of? Some species called for an alliance. Others called for war. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same. Because now, humanity had arrived.